We've talked a lot already about Steve Bruce and Newcastle, all the problems going on there. But Leeds comes into this game without a win on the season. What are some things that people are pointing to as troubling signs early in the season, at least for Leeds?
Well, look, Ahmed, we spoke last week about Everton this time last week and then being a sleeping giant of English football. And I think the same can be said about Leeds United. They are a massive club. Right now, it's not all going their own way. Marcelo Bielsa, a legendary coach within global football, came into the club a few years ago. He brought them up to the Premier League after a 16-year absence. That history that he made has made an indelible mark on that club, and it's cemented his status. However, we're going to come on to why things aren't going so well now. And some of the context is that everything has been built around Marcelo Bielsa. On and off the pitch, the training ground, the team, the squad, the recruitment. He's a very demanding manager to work for. The players love it, but it's also exhausting. The executives, the staff, they love it, but it's very exhausting and demanding. And after the heroics of last season, finishing in 9th place, this season they've had injuries. Have they prioritised style over substance? They've had trouble with Rodrigo, the player who is playing tonight. He needs to produce goals, the record signing. It can't all be on Patrick Bamford. Andrea Radrizzani, the owner. Victor Orta, the director of football. Angus Kinnear, the chief executive. They've got a big job on their hands, but it will all come down to Marcelo Bielsa. Is this second season syndrome? Yeah,
and they had problems last weekend with Liverpool, 3-0 loss there. Liverpool trying to prove that last season was not a step back, it was just some injuries and they can bounce right back. What has stuck out to you the most about their start this year?
Well, Liverpool have done things so differently, Ahmed, this summer to every other leading club. They, instead of recruiting heavily, they have renewed contracts. They have prioritised having and holding what they have, and it's working so far. I've got a sneaking feeling that they could launch an impressive challenge for the title this season and, of course, in the Champions League. Now, with that policy, we've got to ask ourselves why they did it. It's because finances are tight. FSG, their ownership, tried to run a sustainable ship, only spending what they earn. We're still in a pandemic. They've had to build a new training ground. They've built a new stand and they want to build another. So money is tight. But Jurgen Klopp is an expert at working with what he has and developing talent. And Michael Edwards, their sporting director too. Now, I revealed in my Monday column a couple of weeks back that he could well leave the club when his contract expires next summer, and that could be a massive moment for Liverpool. It's not finally decided yet, but it is something that we look like we are moving towards. And Liverpool need to understand how that will affect them. I think, from what we're seeing of Liverpool so far this season, that they could win that title back that they lost to Manchester City last season. And if they do, I believe it could be a bigger achievement than when they won it for the first time in 30 years 2 seasons ago.
A lot of intrigue, as always, with Liverpool. Really sets up for an interesting matchup tomorrow against Crystal Palace under Patrick Vieira. Got their first win against Tottenham, 3-0. What are some of the things you're hearing out of that camp early this season?
I actually think this is one of the most fascinating stories in the Premier League because Crystal Palace are a club that I describe as being very earthy. They have a rickety old stadium. They had or have a rickety old training ground, but they are developing. They've built a new academy to provide the next wave of talent. They're trying to redevelop the stadium and they're trying to move into the modern era with their manager as well. After a long and very painful recruitment process that saw them come close to appointing the likes of Lucien Favre, of Nuno Espirito Santo, they eventually gambled on Patrick Vieira with no Premier League experience previously and not any spectacular managerial experience. They had around 12 players out of contract. They have recruited very, very impressively. The sporting director, Dougie Friedman, the chairman and co-owner, Steve Parish, his American co-owners, Josh Harris and David Blitzer, and John Textor's now come on board as well. And they appear to be clicking. The likes of Mark Gurhey and Joachim Andersen at the back. And of course, we saw that hat-trick, that 2 goals in succession for Odsonne Edouard, Conor Gallagher in midfield as well. Liverpool and Crystal Palace have quite a close relationship. Some of the people behind the scenes share ideas. And I wonder if that sort of inside intelligence could help Crystal Palace tomorrow. They have the type of players that could wound Liverpool and do some dangerous things. I'm really intrigued to see where this project goes at Palace, because if it goes wrong, very quickly they could hurtle downwards. But there's a lot of goodwill behind Patrick Vieira and that club.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.